Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Wader. You know this man next to me rocking the Buffalo Bills hat, the Austin Hill. Obviously, like we said last week, we were at the AFC Championship. We're going to get to that in a minute. But don't worry, I bet you're all asking, where is the College Football Awards show? Where is it? Where is it? The college football season's over. Don't y'all know it takes time to make an award show happen?
Yeah,
Do you people not
yeah,
realize that? Don't worry, we're getting that out to you here soon once we get all our voting in and polls up for you guys to vote on, and then for others. So as soon as that happens, we will let you know. Don't worry, but it's around the corner. I know good and dang well this man doesn't want to miss Ashton Genty's coronation. So
yeah. Absolutely not. This is going to be another fun one. Just got to get in there and crunch the numbers. Hard to imagine it's particularly close in our Player of the Year race this year. But as always, we're going to do our best to have a fun time with it and see the way things stand.
yeah, we will see. But this is an NFL episode, so we're going to talk all things. And in case you know, it was Conference Championship Sunday, this past Sunday, and like we said, we were at the AFC Championship, but we got to see part of this NFC Championship that went down: Eagles and Commanders. And oh boy, was it a butt whooping by the Philadelphia Eagles. 55-23 win over the Commanders. You know, this the difference in the game really as a whole. Three fumbles, four turnovers as a whole for the Commanders. They had been so good during the wild card round and the divisional round about not turning the football over and being smart with it. And really, that's what cost them in this game. You know, those turnovers were the difference, and the Eagles were able to capitalize with running and also with Jalen Hurts passing the football, too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, they got out ahead early in this game. Saquon Barkley, two touches, two touchdowns to start this game. And they got the run game going first, and then that opened up the door for Jalen Hurts, who was injured obviously in this game or coming into this game, to start get going throwing the ball and find a groove and find some momentum. He made some really impressive passes in this game. Looks like he's starting to get back into shape. Now, obviously having the time off for the Super Bowl is going to be huge for them. But yeah, they attacked with this run game, a run game that just did not quit. And then this defense, like you said, forced a bunch of turnovers and put the Commanders in a bind. Um, Man, this team was great at forcing fumbles this year. And then to continue that into this game and go out there and just an onslaught in a game where, this could have been, 21 to 7 or 17 kind of football game. The way the run games were going, this definitely could have been that way. Jaden Daniels could have helped control the run game on the other side and slow this game down, but instead they forced a lot of turnovers and they capitalized with quick and long rushing attacks to really kind of drag this score just into a different dimension. Seven rushing touchdowns is just unbelievable. I can't even believe in the modern NFL a team would get seven rushing touchdowns in a game.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly unreal. And I mean, almost it got to the point where the Commanders couldn't stop them, where the officials almost had to award them points on the goal line.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you knew that rule. You're a liar if you did, because I did not know the official could just award points to a team.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because theoretically that could have gone on forever. They ran out of
Right.
room, and at that point it just becomes a non-factor for the Commanders. Why not just keep jumping off? Because eventually either you're going to time it up or they're going to get through. Uh, but yeah, I mean, they were running out of room to move, so it's just going to be redoing like second down over and over and over again. And so yeah, it makes sense that the officials could award points. But yeah, it was definitely a news flash for everybody seeing that and hearing the officials say, "Hey, if you don't stop, we're just going to give them points."
Absolutely. But let's talk about this from the side of the Commanders really quickly. Obviously, I could just make a full speech, but hugely exceeded expectations this year with a rookie quarterback, Jane Daniels, Dan Quinn, his first year, Cliff Kingsbury, offense coordinator. You go 12-5, you make it all the way to the NFC Championship game, and there's still so much on this roster that could be improved for next year. And a big thing that was announced recently, Cliff Kingsbury staying around for another year as OC with Jane Daniels. That's something that's big. But I mean, let's just say it was a phenomenal year for the Washington Commanders. And more importantly, something that Dan Snyder doesn't get credit for. So I'm happy.
Yeah, this was incredible. Really good season. Great on Dan Quinn and the rest of the staff to take what you have and make the most of it. And that was an NFC Championship appearance. Um, Look, Jaden Daniels certainly exceeded expectations. Cliff Kingsbury, it was nice to see him stick around. I liked that he was unwilling to take any interviews during the playoffs. He said, I want my focus to be on helping Jaden and helping this offense go as far as we can. And then if somebody still wants me, then maybe I'll take an interview. Um, but yeah, I like that he was willing to sacrifice, potential gain on his part to be able to help this team make a run. That's something you don't see very often anymore. And no disrespect to guys who take those interviews. But it just goes to show where his priorities were at, what he was more focused on. But yeah, this was awesome to watch. Zach Ertz's post-game press conference was fun to watch, where he said, I wish I was in my 20s and I wish that I had forever ahead of me to play with these guys. He loves this team, loves the locker room. He did say he'd be back for next season, but he knows he's in his mid 30s. Time's running out on his career, and it's just fun to hear that this team was a change of pace in the culture from the Washington football team of old.
Mm. It truly was. So here's my question to you. Obviously, like I said, this is a team that was supposed to be rebuilding this year. So there's still a lot of things to look at to fix in Washington. Going into the offseason, what do you think Washington's number one priority should be now that the way everything is right now?
If I'm looking at this team, I really think it's secondary help. I know they got killed running the ball in this NFC Championship, but look, their big get at the trade deadline was Marshawn Lattimore to help boost that secondary. And let's just be frank, Marshawn Lattimore is uh, over the hill. He's over the hump in his career. He's on the downward slide. Look, he has a habit of getting into fights, but now he just gets into fights when he knows he's not going to win a matchup. Anytime he's outmatched, he just gets into a fight. And look, that's good and dandy all maybe for, him, but for you as a team, that's 15 yards every time Marshawn Lattimore thinks he's going to get beat, which is just not helping you. I think secondary is huge for them. You talk about guys like Cameron Curl they've lost in the past. Kendall Fuller was another guy they had for a while that they lost. I just think this team has lost a lot in the secondary over the last few years. And that's somewhere they could definitely use an upgrade, especially with the way somebody had to, Marshawn Lattimore had to guard somebody. And when he was on A.J. Brown, it was an easy catch or 15 yards. And when he was on Devontae Smith, it was an easy touchdown and a 15-yard penalty. Um, so, yeah, it was just a great job. I think this defensive line is really built. And if Bobby Wagner's going to stick around, I think the linebacking core's got a good face to it. But the secondary, I think, could use a big time overhaul.
Yeah, my number one key is don't let Bobby Wagner retire.
Yes.
The difference he made there, I think, in the culture there in year one with Dan Quinn and stuff, I think has been great. So my number one goal is like, Bobby, listen, we'll pay you whatever you want for a 1 year deal. Just stick around for another year while we try to find a guy to kind of build underneath you. As for what else, secondary, I think is a fair point. You mentioned the run game was dominated. You look at the defensive line, Deron Payne's getting into his 30s, Jonathan Allen's in his 30s. Cleveland Farrell was your main defensive end, along with John Baptiste and Dorrance Armstrong. So there's a lot to me, it's defense, obviously. Just get more depth, get more talent on the defensive side of the ball, because you could be like, well, we gotta get over the hump of Philly in the regular season too, because you gotta face Saquon Barkley again next year and that run heavy Philadelphia Eagle offense. So absolutely, I think defense is the way to go. But the Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl. We'll talk more about them next week, obviously. But let's get to the AFC Championship. Chiefs and Bills here. And of course, as you all know, like I said, we got to attend this game in person. So before we talk about the game, We might as well talk about our experience. So, Austin, we were both there. We got there right as the parking lot opened up for it, and it was an insane atmosphere in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, even before the game, you've just got a full parking lot. Like you said, we got there before the parking lots even open. They open at 1 o'clock. We get there at 12:45 as we're pulling up to our gate, and the parking lot's already full. Which is just crazy. The parking lots have not even opened yet, and they're full. So yes, it was an insane environment right away, but a welcoming environment for a visitor fan. We came in wearing Bills gear. We're not hiding it. We were there to have fun and see a great game and cheer on the Bills to, maybe break up this three-peat chance. But look, while Kansas City fans, it was a lot of friendly banter is what I've been telling people. It was what you expect fan on fan interactions to be. Nothing hateful. Nobody came up to us and tried to start a fight. Nobody gave us any issues. It was super welcoming. Like, hey, have a great time. We hope you lose, but have a great time. And that was a fun environment to be in because it felt like, as it should be, all fans should rejoice in celebrating the football game. We're here to watch football. And so it's nice to be brothers in arms, even though you may be rooting against the other team. So yes, right away it was a great environment coming into the parking lot. And time really just kind of flew. Everything we're doing, walking around, checking everything out, sight to see, and a fantastic stadium, really, in Arrowhead. Um,
I mean, yeah, that was my next point. Walking in Arrowhead, I mean, I haven't been to a lot of NFL stadiums. I've been to the Cowboys one. Really, that's about technically I went to the one I've been to the Titans field. I went to Jacksonville, but I've only been to one for one game, which was the Cowboys one. That was back in whenever AT&T Stadium was brand new. This is Arrowhead. Obviously, they made adjustments, but this stadium was made in 1969. Beautiful stadium. It was absolutely beautiful. And the thing I loved about it, pretty much anyone from any seat got an insane view of the field with the way it was kind of going vertical up. So it didn't matter if there was people in front, you could still see the game perfectly well. That's what I loved especially about it.
Yeah, heck of an incline, heck of a walk. But yeah, from anywhere you could see the field. Um, and it felt like you could see everything going on. Yeah, it was just a phenomenal situation and a great environment. Chiefs Kingdom really brought the noise in this game.
Yeah, especially with their fireworks.
Yeah,
Yeah. Basically that story is me and Austin were shooting video. I surround like videos around, and we hear the sound. Well, we basically it's like a cannon going off of the fireworks. We were this close to both of us just tossing our phones whenever because it shook us so bad whenever they first did it.
yeah. I mean, I turned to you and I said, I thought I was dead. I thought it was just over. I thought somebody had just killed me. I thought I did. I thought it was over. It was just so loud, and it wasn't just loud. It's because you could feel the vibration in your body from when they went off. Now, as the fans got louder and the game got going, and people were bouncing around and yelling, it wasn't so much of an issue. But right away, I mean, what we were still an hour and a half from kickoff, I think, and just a big boom right behind me. I was like, that is insane that they're even doing that right now.
Yeah. The stadium was great. The environment, like you said, there was a good amount of Chiefs banner. There's stuff we could go into detail
Yeah.
about here. Um, but I think for the sake of, just
Yeah,
not
well,
bantering about and being stuck with it for forever. If you want to know those stories, feel free to ask one of us personally.
yeah.
Then you can get them because we had basically I'll summarize. We had Bills on Bills fans almost fighting.
The
Uh,
yeah, only fight we really almost witnessed was Bills fans going at it.
Yeah. And then we had pretty much an entire row of Chiefs fans with their shirts off by the time the game was over, pretty much.
Yeah,
If you want more details on it, you could talk to us more personally, but we're gonna leave that at that.
yeah. It's certainly interesting. The taking the shirts off seemed to be what fueled the Chiefs. After
Yes.
shirts started coming off, they got the 4th and 1 stop. That may or may not have been a stop. Then they scored a touchdown. Then they kicked the field goal, and then they got the stop to end the game. As more shirts came off, the Chiefs just seemed to power up in this game. So I'm gonna shout out that section of fans. because as they started taking their shirts off, the game started to change in the favor of the Chiefs, and I think that that had everything to do with it.
I mean, that's what I tell people. I'm like, once that fourth down stop happened, it was like constant. It was like one by one by one
Yeah,
after the touchdown, after near the end. I mean, it was ridiculous. But that was our environment. I highly recommend if you can go to an NFL game. I would highly recommend going to Kansas City for it. Environment's great. Like I said, the stadium, there's not really a bad seat in the stadium, I don't think. So that at least I would recommend going to one next year. Obviously, it depends on if you can.
yeah.
But I would highly recommend Arrowhead. I had a great time there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did as well. Yeah. Big props. The only issue I really had was nobody directing flow of traffic to get out of the parking lot. That was crazy.
Took us a whopping 50 minutes to an hour just to get out of the parking lot there. Mainly because, yeah, there was no one in the parking lot to help guide. They were all down by like the highway and the interstate to kind of help traffic there. I'm like, well, I mean, that's fine, but where are all the people that were guiding us into our parking spot? Where were they at whenever we were leaving? I mean, that seems like a simple thing to do.
Yeah, it's a two facet job. You don't just let people in, you also got to let people out. At least that's usually how it is. I mean, at Simmons Bank, the people that let you in are the people that let you out. So yeah, I don't know where those people were. Feels like a big oopsie to have for the biggest game of the entire year in Kansas City. I mean, there will not be a bigger game for the Chiefs this season.
Yeah, but that's our experience. Uh, we've talked enough about it. You've heard our opinion. Let's talk about the game now, which we both said it was a great game. It went about as we expected, an instant classic, wire to wire. Uh, and let's just say it like it is. The third quarter was truly the turning point. The Bills, it was 21-10. The Chiefs were up in the first half. The Bills get that late touchdown and then go down and score again. And they're up by one, force the Chiefs three and out. So at that point, we're in the stadium and it's dead silent there with Chiefs fans. Like that was the first time in the game that me and you could actually talk without yelling to each other, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but then the Bills are driving, going for fourth downs a lot, and then the one fourth down that they did not get, the whole argument there, we'll discuss in a second. But after that, it felt like the Chiefs got momentum and got that touchdown, take the lead. But I think people forget the Bills scored a touchdown after that to tie it up, held the Chiefs to three, and had a chance to win the game there. So, but overall, thoughts on the game, Austin?
Yeah, so when the game started going and the Bills couldn't really get their offense going and the Chiefs were just flying down the field in the first half, I was like, of course, the one playoff game I'm going to get to, the one time we get to see Bills and Chiefs, which is always a classic, it's going to be a Chiefs blowout, a Chiefs rout. I'm in a Bills hat and I'm going to get laughed out of the stadium. Fortunately, like you said, Matt Collins makes one of the best catches I've ever seen. This was a great ball from Josh Allen, but Matt Collins, look, I mean, they threw a pass interference flag on the field. Matt Collins had every excuse not to catch this football, and he came down with it. Incredible catch. Like we've said all year, I get to say it one more time about these Buffalo Bills, since unfortunately their season's over. But what they did with this receiving core this year, by getting rid of Stephon Diggs and building up a more fleshed out and deep receiving core that goes 4 to 5 guys deep was really impressive. And that allowed opportunities where, hey, you've had issues with Khalil Shakur catching the ball. Amari Cooper turns out he's had a broken wrist almost all season since he got to Buffalo that he's been playing on that nobody knew about. Curtis Samuel had a huge drop early in the game. So what do? You throw in Matt Collins and he makes a huge catch that flips the momentum. So then from that point, start turning the game around. But yeah, like you talked about with this 4th and 1, look, they didn't get it. But like you said, they had opportunities after that fact, and they just didn't capitalize. They tied the game, they held them to three, and they had a chance to win it. I'm sure we'll get to both of the big fourth downs there in the fourth quarter, the 4th and 1, and then the fourth and forever that Josh Allen almost converted. But yes, this was a great game. I had a blast. Man, if you could get to a Bills Chiefs game, I suggest it because you will not be missing anything.
Yeah. But no, let's talk about it. I mean, that's when that turnover on downs happened. It was like right near the end of the third quarter, I felt like whenever it did happen, or at least I felt like it did. Um,
Yeah,
or no, it happened at like the very start of the fourth quarter, I guess I should say.
yeah,
But yeah, Josh Allen fights for the first down. Me and you in person, we didn't have the angle that
yeah,
everyone else had that was watching the game on TV. But when me and you watched it on the screen there and everything, we're like, that's so hard to tell. How can we how can you tell that's a first down? Well, then the CBS broadcast gave the other angle, and it looked like it should have been a first down. Gene Steratore and them all seemed to agree it was a first down. Was a very questionable call to say the least. But from our perspective, we felt it was really close.
yeah. So my biggest thing, is that in the replay, now I'm not excusing the officials by any means because I don't particularly agree with this line of thought. But I will say that because of the shot is right down the line, as Josh Allen moves the football, a Chiefs helmet is covering up where exactly the football is. Now, to me, if you have a brain and you follow Josh Allen's arms where the last place you know where the football is, and you don't see the football fly forward or fly out backwards as a fumble, and you know Josh Allen still has it in his arms, you can follow Josh Allen's arms, and his arms and the football should pretty clearly and pretty easily break the plane. Now, again, you cannot see the football because of the helmet that is covering it up. I don't agree with that train of thought. I think it should definitely be within the rules to be like, hey, I know that that football is there in his hands and you can see where his arms are. You should be able to call that a first down. My other thing, though, I will say is that, look, the Bills got to a lot of fourth downs in this game and they converted a good amount of them. But look, when you get to fourth down this many times, and especially when you run these QB sneaks, you're leaving it entirely up to what happens on the field. These QB sneaks, there's too many bodies, too many helmets flying, covering up cameras. If you can even see the football at all, sometimes it's buried in a pile. You've got to convincingly get that first down, and that's just the risk you run. Look, I agree. I think the replay, in my opinion, shows a first down, but there's a helmet covering it up. There's guys all over Josh Allen. It's so hard to make that call. It's so hard for an official on the field to make that call. It's hard to turn anything over in replay, especially when it has to be indisputable. So I think it's the situation you kind of put yourself in. I don't disagree with the call, but this is the risk you run. You're not going to get the benefit of the replay review when it comes to the QB sneak. And sometimes that goes in your favor. Sometimes it gets called a first down, and maybe you didn't quite get it. But there's nothing replay review can really do about it. And then sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes maybe you got it, but the way the officials called it on the field just can't be overturned. So yeah, I disagree with the call, but I can't harp on it too much because the way the Bills handled it, they kind of pinned themselves into a corner where you just had to go with the call on the field.
Yeah. Listen, my take on it again, similar to you is again, that's tough to do, but at the same time, I look at it as the technology we have nowadays. There's no reason why we should be trusting just the bare eyes of the officials
That's
all the
true.
way down the line to make that call. And even on replay, like you said, I agree. I thought it was a first down from that angle they showed. But to me, there's got to be some sort of thing, technology wise, that you can put in that football. And I'm not talking about anything big. Like freaking, there's those microchips nowadays that could get so much information from people or from stuff whenever you put it on. Why can't you get that in the football and figure out a plan for that? That's my whole thought there. And the other thing, yes, the Chiefs went down and scored after it. But like we said, the Bills scored a touchdown to tie it up after it. It would have been different if this was a 29-22 final. Then we're having a different conversation here.
Yes.
But this was 32-29. You held the Chiefs to 3 points, and overall, in the end, you had a chance to score. And we'll talk about it now. That fourth down for the Bills, they turned it to a manageable fourth down. I believe it was 4th and 5 whenever they got to it late in the game. But Josh Allen, by some miracle, doesn't had a full corner blitz come right at him. And I hear all this talk about alerting, checking the protection and stuff for Josh Allen. I agree you could do that. At the same time, it's 4th and 5 in an AFC championship. You're trusting your coaching staff with the play. I get there's a lot he needs to focus on there, but still, to me, I don't know about it. But the corner came completely unblocked. Josh Allen heaves it up and somehow gave Dalton Kincaid a chance to catch that ball, and it slips through his hands. But again, I look at this whole situation, and you'll get to your point because you said in a second the fact that that had a chance of being caught was insane. That had no business having a chance of being caught at all.
Yeah, this was a crazy play. Like you said, here's my personal take on it. Look, they go five wide, and I think that's the right call. Get five playmakers out there. You've got a great receiving core, tight ends included. Get five wide and make them stop you for 5 yards. It was a great call by Spagnola. Send a corner blitz because he knew a receiver was not going to be blocking. And I think that's just what it came down to. You can check your protections, you can check and see all you want. But look, that corner was going to come unblocked. You're not pulling a receiver out of his route to check a corner. Um, it's going to be hard for a tackle to get that far outside to stop him. This is just a great play call by Spagnola. And look, the big thing is, I just don't know if there's another quarterback in the NFL that can make that throw falling backwards off your back foot and make it that close. Josh Allen just saw three white jerseys and chunked it up, and that was the right call in the situation. Look, when I watched this on the field, I thought that Dawson Knox had gotten his hand under it, squeezed it, and then it had popped out when he hit the ground. And I was like, wow, you should have caught. My first words to you were, I think you should have caught that. But when I saw the replay of the backside angle where it just kind of slipped through his arms, I mean, how can you hold a tight end to that? He already makes the play to come back to the ball against all odds and get anything on it. Look, it was just a heave up in the middle of the field that just slipped through his arms. It was just a tough situation, and they just didn't convert. It was a great effort by the Buffalo Bills in this game. They had their chances. But at the end of the day, Steve Spagnola hit the checkmate against Joe Brady. Two great minds going at it, but Spagnola got the advantage there at the end.
Yeah, he truly did. And something that you kept on talking to me about during the game, and something I think it's worth noting. We were asking. Well, actually, it was you that brought it up to me. I don't want to act like I'd noticed it. You're the one who noticed it. You're looking around when the Bills are on defense. You're like, where is Von Miller? I'm not seeing Von Miller anywhere. And I didn't realize until you said, I was looking around, I was like, oh my gosh, where is Von Miller? So I actually have the notes here, Austin, if you're ready. So
Yes.
he played a total of 16 snaps defensively and 24, so 24% of the defensive plays. Last week against the Ravens, he was on for 17 plays, 29%. Then the wild card round, he was on for 21 plays, 50% of the defensive plays there. So it seemed to have been a trend really last week from Baltimore. Again, it's a whole scheming thing, but that's something you were telling me, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. Where the heck is Von Miller? And I'm with you. I want an experienced pass rusher on the field that has been clutch in the playoffs, known for it, and with a Super Bowl MVP by his name. I'm going to give him more chances than 16 snaps.
Yeah, my big thing was obviously it got to a point where Patrick Mahomes was getting out of the pocket, and because of the way the coverage couldn't really hold up on the back end, they just couldn't afford a spy. They couldn't afford to lose an extra guy in coverage on the receivers, which I understand. But it's like, they're just thinking to themselves, man, if only we had an experienced, proven superstar in the playoffs that could rush the quarterback and has won a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, the guy's got two Super Bowls to his name. He's an incredibly dominant force. And look, your schemes, whatever. But I just feel like when Patrick Mahomes is killing you that much, you need a guy who's made a career out of getting to quarterbacks in the biggest games of your season. I just didn't understand Von Miller being off the field. I mean, I was texting people, "Hey, I know you're watching the broadcast. Have they said anything about why Von Miller's not on the field? Because he's not on the inactives list. He's active for the game, and I'm not seeing him at all." Yeah, it was just mind-boggling to not see Von Miller at all in this game.
It truly was mind-boggling, but let's talk about it for the Bills now. Listen, another year of heartbreak to the Chiefs in the playoffs. Dare I ask the question, what is it going to take, Austin, for them to get over the top of the Chiefs? If you want my opinion, the moment this game really struggled for them defensively, whenever Christian Benford went out, their second string corner, he went out with an injury. Now, obviously, he had to get carted off with a concussion. To me, you need more depth in that secondary this offseason. That's what I thought. What do you think it's going to take for the Bills to finally get over that hurdle and get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. It's secondary help. Like I said, they got killed in the secondary, and that had them take away the QB spy, which was huge for them in the regular season. When they were able to run it against the Chiefs, it worked perfectly. It held Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, but it was just they just didn't have any help in the secondary. And look, that was just a result of this past offseason. They had to let go of Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde, cap casualties. They just didn't have the money and they had to make cuts somewhere. Obviously, they were able to bring back Micah Hyde this year at the end of the season, but still, that's one person. And it didn't help that Taylor Rapp was out coming into this game. So then Micah Hyde is just playing starting safety. So yeah, they just need more depth in the secondary. I mean, this was one of the best secondaries in football with Poyer, Hyde, and Tre'Davious White all healthy. I mean, this was an unbelievable secondary. Um, so yeah, they need a great secondary to keep this team where it's at. Everything else really did its part when it could. But that's what I would look for is secondary. James Cook has come along so well for this team. He had a great game in this AFC Championship. But yeah, this really came down to just not having the matchups in secondary to contain guys like Xavier Worthy in the one-on-one.
Yeah, it really was. And another thing, Kyrie Elam, I know they drafted him in the first round. He has not worked out for them. He has
No.
not been ideal. He's the one that had to step in once Benford went out and the attack was on for him. So yeah, I think secondary is the big thing there. So the Super Bowl is set, whether we like it or not. It's Chiefs and Eagles. Super Bowl is going to be in New Orleans next Sunday. Like I said, next week we'll have a full game preview and, of course, novelty specials where we're going to go with heads and tails. What Gatorade colors are? Will we ever get it right? Find out. Um, we'll
Never.
wait and see what happens with that, but that'll all be coming next week. And in case y'all remember last year, we did a Super Bowl live stream a few hours before the game. We're going to make a post on Instagram. Let us know if that interests you in us doing that live stream again. We had a lot of people join for that live stream. You remember, Austin, when we were
Yes, I
talking
do.
about the game, people giving us their opinion and questions they wanted to know. We had fun doing it. So, yeah, if you want us to do that again on Super Bowl Sunday, it'd probably be a little bit earlier than that time since we'll have an episode out. But if you want us to, let us know. We would gladly do it. We'll make a plan for it. And yeah, we would love it. So we'll make a post for that next week. So just let us know on that post if that would interest you. But enough talk about the Super Bowl. We're going to save that for next week, a big one in New Orleans. Let's talk about the coaching carousel, Austin, because we got done talking last week right as all the final pieces started to get going. And it starts with Jacksonville, where we talked about last week. I went back and listened to because I was curious. Talked about how Liam Cohen had backed out of the job because he had, at the time we were recording,
Yeah,
had backed out of the job. Trent Baalke had gotten fired as GM. And after that, I'll just say all hell broke loose after that
yeah,
because the Jaguars recalled Liam Cohen after the Buccaneers were going to offer him the highest paid coordinator job. I'm like, yo, we fired Baalke. Can you reconsider? And he's like, yeah, I'll come back. He's over there talking. Tampa couldn't get in touch with him. So he eventually becomes the new head coach and lets him know. that he's going to take over as head coach in Jacksonville and leave Tampa Bay. And, you wonder, did feelings get hurt with the way this worked out? Well, Liam Cohen tried to hire some assistants from Tampa Bay, or at least try to request interviews from Tampa Bay with those guys to come be a part of Jacksonville. Tampa Bay blocked them straight up, said, no, you don't get them. So, obviously, first question for you, Austin, how do you feel about this hire in Jacksonville, number two? Do you think some feelings seriously got hurt here in the way this worked out?
Yeah, this was a mind-boggling situation, but at first, I think this is a good hire for Jacksonville. Um, Obviously, the offensive coordinator Baker's been getting these guys jobs in his first 2 years here with the Buccaneers, and that really goes to show a good thing for them. I think this is a right hire. It's a step in the right direction. You get a guy that was on your list, and with the way things were kind of dwindling down, this was the guy they wanted. But yeah, this was one of the guys that was on their list all the way back then. Now that they've gotten rid of Balky, uh, I'm really glad that someone stuck to his guns and got them to fire Balky. Balky needed to be gone, and he snapped some sense into him. I am completely perplexed by this whole situation. So Schefter's breakdown of it was super helpful for me to understand kind of what's going on. I was on the Pat McAfee show, and like you said, after the Bulky firing, they called him back. They were like, "Hey, we've gotten rid of Bulky. What can we do to bring you in?" And he's like, "You know what? I'm in. You come to agree on these terms, we'll do it." He goes, and yeah, the Buccaneers can't get a hold of him, whatever. Um, but the big thing here is that Pat McAfee was like, well, they offered him to be like the highest paid coordinator ever. He's like, isn't that what you do? Like when a guy's trying to get a head coaching job? And Schefter was like, no, that's pretty unheard of. Usually you let that guy take the head coaching job, you know, and that was kind of my mindset. That's what was so perplexing to me is like, it's like a brotherhood. Like it shows you're doing the right thing. If 2 years in a row, your offensive coordinator is getting hired to be a head coach somewhere else. And on top of that, you're like cheering that guy on. He's taking that next big step in his career, to go do something bigger and better, and you wish him well is usually how that goes. I mean, you didn't see the Lions, block, Ben Johnson from hiring all those guys off the Lions staff after he left. So yeah, it's a perplexing scene. And even last year when Dave Canales left, this team didn't blow up and throw a fit when he went to be the OC in Carolina. So yeah, this was completely perplexing and unheard of. I think that, I get having your feelings hurt. He said, having working out this deal for him to be the highest paid coordinator. But I think if you're faulting a guy and, all of a sudden ruining a relationship, what seemed to be a pretty good relationship with a guy, just because he went and did what he thought it was best for his career and really took a step up in his coaching career. I think that's wrong and a little bit disgusting from the Tampa Bay organization.
I think so as well. And another thing I tell people all the time, he was going to be the highest paid coordinator. The difference in salary between coordinator and head coach, the difference is night and day. There's a big difference when it comes to salary there. And my final question for you, Austin, on it, thoughts on the press conference comment he did. I know you've seen it. If you
Yes.
haven't seen it, you know what? Magic of editing, we'll put it on the screen right now.
Duval.
So yeah, that was the comment there, Austin. It was interesting with the Duval.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to say I think a coach is going to do terrible in his tenure from one sentence in a press conference, but that's what that gave me when I heard it.
The thing is with Duval, it's usually more of like a yeah, like Duval, like you're bringing energy to it. I don't think in itself it was bad. Like I kind of liked the cool, calm demeanor, but it doesn't go with the Duval. Duval's like a hype, energy kind of thing. So I'm not gonna judge him too hard for it. They did give him a redemption. I don't know if you saw, and he did a little bit better in his redemption.
Did
Um,
not see the redemption.
but yeah, if I think he was just trying to be like a calm, cool, like chill kind of vibe. And I don't, I think that's a good vibe to bring as a coach. But with the Duval thing, I think you got to bring some energy. It's Duval, all caps, five exclamation marks. So I think you got to bring a little bit more than that to the table. But it was a nice gym to have and a nice little laugh.
Yeah. Regardless of how his time in Jacksonville goes, that clip will be used forever. That
Yeah.
will be used forever. If he's fired after 2 years, that sucker will go viral. If he leads Jacksonville to the Super Bowl in 2 years, that sucker's going to be around. It doesn't matter. It's going to be around for forever, and it's perfect.
Yeah, if they win a Super Bowl, you can guarantee when he's on the mic, he'll hit him with a little Duval.
But yeah, that's how that whole fiasco went down in Jacksonville. Like I said, that was pure chaos with how that situation worked out. Um, as far as other hires, let's talk about them. The Raiders. We talked about last week saying the lead candidate right now we had heard was Pete Carroll. And sure enough, they made Pete Carroll that head coach that pretty much that next day, I think, after we talked about it.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll hired as the head coach there. Uh, great, great hire, I think, when it comes to a guy who has rebuilt a franchise like he did in Seattle. People forget what he had to overcome in Seattle to do that. So, obviously, the question by the time he starts coaches his first game for the Raiders, he'll be the oldest head coach in NFL history. So, good hire, Austin. The question is, how long do you think it will last?
I honestly think Pete Carroll's one of those guys, kind of like a Greg Popovich. He'll be coaching until he drops. So I think Pete Carroll will give it his all. I think he'll last, as long as the Raiders want him to. Like he said when he was in Seattle and, they parted ways, he wasn't done. That wasn't his idea to be done. He wasn't ready to walk away. And I think we still see that. He still has that energy. For me, I think this is a great hire. I love Pete Carroll. He wasn't particularly super high on my list of Bears head coach jobs. But that's because I knew the Bears job would be a hot commodity like it was. And we were going to be able to get anybody. That's why we got the number one guy in the carousel. So but I like Pete Carroll. I like what he does. Like you said, what he did at Seattle, what he did at USC. He's a guy that builds franchises and builds programs, whether he's at the college level, whether he's at the NFL level. This guy gets the job done. And he takes this team in the right direction. Look, you've got Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Depends on who you're arguing with. I'll say he's the greatest quarterback of all time. You're really not going to argue with me about it. Um, who comes in and he wants to build a culture, and then he brings in this head coach who's won national championships, won Super Bowls, um, the epitome of consistency. And so now you're starting to see the building blocks coming into place for what this new era in Las Vegas looks like. And I really like the direction they're headed.
Yeah, I do as well. And let's just say it like it is. I'm excited for it. I think, and the big thing with him, I'm interested about, obviously, he's got a wide open field. They're really open to do anything they want with this roster. Obviously, that includes most likely moving on from Max Crosby. If you're wanting to just reset the roster, trade Crosby, get picks, and really kind of reset, I think they got the time. I think they got the chance to do it. And I think they actually made a good coaching hire. So we will see there. And the last one we're going to talk about, good old Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones making their hire. It was rumored, we talked about Deion Sanders was the one whenever that first happened. It was the Deion talk. There was talk it was going to be Robert Saleh and others. And then I brought it up very quickly whenever we talked last week that there were rumors that they were in talks with their OC the past 2 years, Brian Schottenheimer, to be the head coach. And then that ultimately came to fruition, hiring Brian Schottenheimer as coach, a guy with zero head coaching experience during his time. And listen, I'm not trying to dog on the guy and say he's a bad coach. I'm not trying to say that. But his record being a coach, it's not great in the places he's been. I'll just say real quick and then give it to you with it, Austin. He was the Commanders quarterbacks coach in 2001 when they had the 28th ranked offense. QB coach for the Chargers from '02 to '05. The only years of Drew Brees' career where he really didn't look like Hall of Fame level was the Jets OC from '06 to 2011 and wasted some of the NFL's best defenses with Mark Sanchez. You was the Rams OC for 3 years in which they were ranked 25th, 21st, and 21st in offense. Was the Georgia OC for 1 year in 2015, 85th in offense, and also he got Mark Richt fired from Georgia. People forget. Was the Colts quarterback coach in 2016, 2017, 30th in offense. Was the Seahawks OC from 2018 to 2020. We know how that ended in Seattle with their really didn't let Russ cook, jokingly there.
Yeah.
And then was the Jaguars pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Urban Meyer season, which speaks for itself. And then the last 2 years in Dallas, he's been the OC there. Last year, pretty good, not necessarily this year. So, my question to you, Austin, number one, thoughts on the hire that happened here with Brian Schottenheimer? And number two, is this just another puppet for Jerry Jones at the head coaching position?
I'll say yes to that. I think yes, this is probably another guy that Jerry Jones is going to be able to run whatever he wants to through. But look, I'm not going to say this is a bad hire. I think at this point, maybe keeping it at the house is the best thing. Just trying to keep maybe some consistency. But my big thing about this is, look, we heard all the big names, that and how this was a desirable job, and this tells me two things: job was not desirable, and Jerry Jones maybe blew it. The only thing I can fathom is that he hung Mike McCarthy around for a while as a just in case. And then McCarthy wanted too much money. While meanwhile he was trying to make a deal with Dion or one of these other big names. And when none of that happened, he was left with nothing. I think that's ultimately what happened. Jerry Jones tried to make some big moves, thought the job was more desirable than it really is, wasn't willing to cut the check that it was going to take to get a bigger name to into this kind of situation. And what's that leave you with? Leaves you hiring in-house. I don't know if this is going to be a good or bad move for the Dallas Cowboys, but what this move tells me is that Jerry Jones, uh, you know, he blew his hands. He had a hand. He had some plays that he tried to make and he couldn't make them. Uh, he may now have realized he's put Dallas in a spot where they're not the team that he thinks they are. So now it's a matter of, is he going to go out there and make a change, or is he going to be the same old stubborn Jerry Jones we know and just keep running this franchise into the ground till they're worth absolutely nothing?
We shall see. But that's it for the coaching hires. Obviously, Saints, not a hire yet. Pretty much everyone thinks it's wrapped up. They have a plan to have a second interview in person with Eagles OC Kellen Moore after the Super Bowl. So everyone feels pretty confident Kellen Moore is the OC, will be the head coach there. We'll talk officially about that probably once the hire is official because we don't want to talk about it and then
Yeah.
last second ditch effort for someone to happen there. But Kellen Moore, the current favorite there, we'll see if he goes there. It is now time for our last segment, awards talk. Of course, the NFL honors are next week, but we're going to be talking all Super Bowl next week. We don't want to talk awards. So we're going to go through the awards here, and that will wrap up the episode. So let's start, Austin, with Comeback Player of the Year. The five finalists: Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, and Damar Hamlin. Who's your pick for Comeback Player of the Year?
I like some of these names. I think Christian Gonzalez or J.K. Dobbins would be really fun to see win it. The only thing against Christian Gonzalez is he missed his rookie year and he didn't play his rookie year. I don't really know if that's a comeback. I'd almost say he's more up for like rookie of the year than comeback player of the year, but I do think he had a good year. But to me, the biggest comeback this season was obviously Sam Darnold. He's basically spent an NFL career and being a laughing stock, people saying, "Oh, you just couldn't cut it. You just couldn't cut it." And he gets to Minnesota and he gets a chance and he thrives in that opportunity. Um, kind of spits in the face of a Jets franchise that is in the middle of its own spiral right now. I think there's no better story in football than Sam Darnold as far as comeback player of the year is concerned.
I think so. Obviously, there's the Damar Hamlin conversation there, and I think he's worth. But as far as actual efforts on the field, I'm with you. I think it's Sam Darnold. I know Joe Burrow came back from a serious hand injury that really messed up his throwing hand, and came back and played really well. But like I said, I don't think there was a better story throughout most of the regular season everyone was talking about than Sam Darnold. You want to know how we know? Because we were talking about it constantly. What is Minnesota going to do this offseason with how good Sam Darnold's played? So
Yeah.
there's your answer right there. Now, we're going to go to Assistant Coach of the Year, then we're going to do Coach of the Year. This is a new award, Austin, for Assistant Coach of the Year. So the nominees for this one, and this is a loaded list, so I hope you're ready. Joe Brady, Vic Fangio in Philly, the defense coordinator, Brian Flores in Minnesota, and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson in Detroit. That is a loaded Assistant Coach of the Year award list. But if you had to pick one, who are you giving it to?
Oh, this is tough. Do I go my bias pick or not? Um, Look, I think I'm gonna go with Ben Johnson, not just because he's the new Bears head coach, but he was the premier guy for everybody. He was the top of everybody's list in this head coaching cycle. And I think that says a lot. Aaron Glenn, great. Joe Brady, I think, is a guy that has a real chance to win this, especially based on the way the Buffalo Bills performed this year. But I really like Ben Johnson for this one.
And would agree, but I'm a more of a defensive guy. And to me, if I'm giving it to someone, I think Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn were great. Joe Brady's great. I'm gonna give it to Vic Fangio to me because what
I
he
like
did
that.
with that Eagles defense, we talked about it last year, Austin. That Eagles secondary was terrible. Then that defense did not know how to make a tackle. The difference in that difference from that defense last year to this year is incredible. And I know part of that's draft picks in the secondary, but it's also learning Vic Fangio's scheme that's been really successful. Obviously in Chicago, you know that better than anyone what he did in Chicago. Denver, he made them a great defense. He just wasn't meant to be a head coach. So I think him or Brian Flores, what Brian Flores did in Minnesota is incredible. I wish the Steelers would have held on to him instead of Terrell Austin. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, but if I had to pick one, I would probably lean more Vic Fangio or Brian Flores. I think what they've done defensively this year has been a great job. But now, Coach of the Year, Austin, the options here are very simple. You got Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, and Andy Reid for the Kansas City Chiefs. Who's your pick for Coach of the Year?
I think when you look at coach of the year, I think you really got to look at the guy who was able to get the most out of a roster that was expected to do the least. That's where coaching comes into play. Obviously, the players have a big impact. But look, as great as a guy like Andy Reid was this year, he's got the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They're going to their third straight Super Bowl. When I look at this Coach of the Year award, I want to give it to a guy like I hope that Dan Quinn wins it. Like you said, this team was supposed to be rebuilding this year. They were supposed to be rebuilding for the next couple of years, and he comes in his first year and takes this team to the playoffs. Obviously, that's as far as the voters will factor. But obviously, that run ended up getting to the NFC Championship. I think it's hard not to look at what he did with this team with a rookie quarterback and a pretty new roster in his first year, and took them to the playoffs in a 10-win season, if I'm correct.
Yeah, a 12 win season,
12-win
12
season.
wins. Yeah. For me, I think he's up there for it. But like you said, if we're not including postseason in this, I think Kevin O'Connell's going to get it, and rightfully so, because I remember the talk going into the regular season, the injuries Minnesota had, the unfortunate passing of one of their draft picks. That everything was going down for Minnesota. It looked like nothing good was working out there, and me and you, I think, both picked them to finish dead last in that division. So what he did this year to get the most out of them and turn that into a 14 win season, even though it resulted in a wild card loss, I think deserves credit. And rightfully so. Minnesota's got a great coach and a young coach that they're going to hopefully, try not to run out of town because if they do, someone's going to look to snag him, I think.
Absolutely.
But now let's get to some player awards. Here we go. We got other player awards. We got Defensive Rookie of the Year. This is a fun one. You got Cooper DeJean, Braden Fisk from the Rams, Quinyon Mitchell, Chop Robinson from Miami, or Jared Verse from the Rams. And I'll just say it like this real quick for mine. To me, it's Jared Verse. To me, it's Jared Verse and no question.
Yeah, I like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean for this award. But I think together they were so important they'd almost split my vote. And I think that's something we're going to see is their votes split. I like Jared Verse. I think Jared Verse was the defensive rookie of the year. Look, me and you both said it. He was the dream pick for the Rams in this draft. Aaron Donald retires. He's not Aaron Donald, but the closest thing you could get to Aaron Donald right here, right now. He came out and had that Aaron Donald like impact on this defense. Jared Verse is going to have a long, promising career. Maybe he won't always be a Ram, but he is going to be something fun to watch, just like he was in college. He is unbelievable. He's my defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, to me, simple as that. Now, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do we want to say this one in unison? Even though I'll give credit to the other nominees: Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, Brian Thomas Jr. All great candidates for Offensive Rookie
Yeah,
of the Year. All were fascinating, but let's just say like it is. There is only one person that is winning this award, and that is the one, the only, Jaden
Jaden
Daniels.
Daniels.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's not even close. I mean that. Let's just
it's
say like
too
it is.
easy. Yeah, I mean, we really don't have to go on any further. We talked about the season the Commanders have had already, and that's a big thanks to Jaden Daniels.
Absolutely. Now, Defensive Player of the Year. This is an award that's always highly controversial to some, but here are the nominees. Obviously, you got TJ Watt up for it, Pat Sertan, Trey Hendrickson, Miles Garrett, and one guy that me and you were talking about in the car ride home, discussing the Super Bowl, Zach Bond from the Philadelphia Eagles, a finalist for the award as well. Tough list to pick from these top five. Who are you giving it to?
Well, look, I'm going to rule out a couple guys here real quick. Miles Turner, while he always has freakish seasons, I just think you have to factor in how well his team did at some point. It's like he plays phenomenal defense, but even this year, like another thing for me is like the Browns were bad. He had a good year, and he didn't really finish at the top of any of the statistical categories this year. He had some guys beat him out there. And then Zach Bond. I like Zach Bond, and he had a really good season. But he spent a lot more time being kind of second fiddle to Nakobe Dean as a middle linebacker for a lot of the year. And then when Nakobe Dean stepped up, he's been even bigger and even more impactful. But I really think that it's been more of a kind of a almost recency bias has kind of helped him out at the end of the season, the way he closed out the year. Not that he's had a bad year. I really like the season he's had. Um, but to me, I'd leave it with guys like TJ Watt, Pat Surtain, and Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson was an extreme bright spot on a very, very bad Bengals team. Um, but when I look at this man, I want to give it to TJ Watt so bad because he deserves so many more than he has. But I think I got to go Pat Surtain this year. He helped lead a fierce Broncos defense this year. Um, I like TJ Watt, but I think I got to go Pat Surtain. Just a phenomenal year he put together this year.
Yeah, listen, I want to go TJ Watt as well, but if I'm being realistic here, if I'm giving it to someone, I'm giving it to Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson, mainly because he was put in a spot where he should have had no success at all. That defense was terrible and led the NFL in sacks, was dominant, rushing the passer all year. I hate that it would go to a division rival, but I think he earned it. To me, if I'm going to say someone besides my biased TJ Watt pick, I'm going to go with Trey Hendrickson. I think that's no question there. And now, two more awards: Offensive Player of the Year, or shall we say the non quarterback award. Even though there's quarterbacks up for the award, the nominees: Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and then the main three I think that we'll be discussing: Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, and Saquon Barkley. Um, who are you picking for Offensive Player of the Year here?
Look, to me, this is cut dry, the easiest thing you'll ever do. Give it to Saquon Barkley. Look, in a year where running backs in college football and the NFL have redefined the position, and kind of reinforced how important a running back is to a team, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley have been at the forefront of that. But Saquon Barkley, it's just a great story on top of everything. You know, he had the injuries in New York, just could never reach his potential in New York, but he showed flashes. People knew what he had. New York gave up on him, said he's not worth. He's surely he won't get garner this much money in the offseason. Surely the Eagles give him the offer, he takes the deal, and he propels this team to new heights. Even when Jalen Hurts struggled this season, he found ways to get him going and to keep him going. Saquon Barkley is, you know, he is the offensive player of the year. He just has been the single most important offensive player in the league this year.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the running attempts versus pass attempts for the Eagles, 32nd in pass attempts, number one rushing. They ran the football with Saquon like crazy. Me and you both agree Saquon Barkley should be the league MVP, but we both agree also it's basically a QB award. So I'm with you, Saquon Barkley, Offensive Player of the Year, even though I feel like he should be the MVP. But our final award, the MVP, the nominees are very well known. You know, you got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, you got Saquon Barkley, Jared Goff, and Joe Burrow. Now, a few weeks ago, there was everyone asking why Joe Burrow should win the MVP, and there's all that. But really, everyone to this point seems to think it's down to two men, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And I think Lamar Jackson statistically has had a better season to this point compared to his other MVP seasons, like he won it last year. But at least to me, I think when you look at the different situations that both quarterbacks were put in this year, and the one that succeeded in the tougher situation, to me, is Josh Allen. To me, it's Josh Allen.
Yeah, if I'm picking between the two quarterbacks, I'm taking Josh Allen. He's had a great year. If that wasn't clear enough by wearing the Bills hat and going to the AFC Championship to support Josh Allen. Um, I like the season Josh Allen's had, but look, I'm going to come out here and say it. I'm going to take Saquon Barkley for the MVP. I hope the voters
Exactly.
have the stones to do it. That would be my pick. If I had a vote, that's who I would vote for. I hope the
Same.
voters have the stones to vote the best player in the NFL as the MVP. Saquon Barkley was truly the most valuable player in the NFL, and there's just no argument against it. The way he's changed this team and led this team, he deserves to take that MVP award home. I don't think they'll do it, just like they robbed Ashton Jeanty of a Heisman. But this should have been the year of running backs taking home the two biggest awards in football. And they're both going to come up just short, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We both said, I mean, if we had votes, we're giving them to Saquon. Um, I'm not going to lie to you. Was kind of surprised at the same time, not that Jared Goff was a finalist for the award. And it's nothing against Jared Goff. It's just when I thought of the candidates for MVP, he never crossed my mind. And that's
Agreed.
nothing against him. That's nothing against him, but it never crossed my mind.
Yeah,
But
I'm with you there.
yeah, but that'll be it for this NFL episode. We talked awards, coaching hires, our experience in the NFC Championship. But now, just one game left. One football game left this season. Super Bowl 59. We'll have our full preview out next week. And like I said in the halfway point of this video, let us know. We'll make a post on Instagram and let you guys decide. If you want us to do a Super Bowl Sunday live stream before the game, talk all things about the game, let us know and we will gladly do it. But it is up to you guys because we're going to make that decision for it. But that's going to do it for this. We're going to talk with you next week for Super Bowl 59. That's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Waiter. We want to thank you for watching.